Let me start by clearing the air. This isn't about deception. This is about dignity. See, in every healthy relationship, there's a boundary line, not a wall, but a line, a sacred space where self-respect lives. And too often, women are told they must give everything, reveal everything, carry everything. But today, I want to speak directly to the women and to the men who love them with truth, clarity, and care. There are some things a woman must never fully hand over, not out of fear, but out of wisdom. Let me tell you something that might feel a little uncomfortable at first, but it's truth and it matters. A woman must never hand over her self-worth to a man, not a boyfriend, not a husband, not a man she's loved for years. No one. Because here's the truth, your worth isn't a product of how he sees you. It existed long before he walked in, and it better exist long after he leaves, if he ever does. That sense of who you are, what you deserve, and what you're capable of, that's not up for negotiation. And the moment you make it negotiable, you give someone else the power to rewrite your identity. I've seen this play out too many times. A woman falls in love. She opens herself up. She gives and gives and gives her time, her energy, her loyalty, even her body. And slowly, sometimes without even realizing it, she starts measuring her value by how much attention he gives her, by how often he calls, by whether or not he compliments her, whether he sees her the way she hopes to be seen. But here's the thing, a good relationship should amplify your worth, not become the source of it. If your confidence is riding on whether he texts you back, that's not love, that's dependency. And there's a difference. One builds you up. The other breaks you down slowly without making a sound. Now, I'm not saying don't be vulnerable. I'm not saying be guarded or cold or closed off. I'm saying stay rooted. Know who you are before you let someone else speak into your life. Because if you don't know who you are, anyone can come along and tell you. And if that person is wounded, insecure, or immature, they'll speak from their wounds, not your truth. A woman who knows her worth doesn't crumble when he's distant. She doesn't chase when he pulls away. She doesn't beg for attention because she knows her presence is valuable. She knows love is not supposed to be earned by sacrifice. It's supposed to be honored by presence. And if she's not being honored, she knows how to step back, not shrink down. You see, men often test boundaries, not always on purpose, but out of habit, conditioning ego. And if the first thing he sees is that your identity is in his hands, he'll treat it with the same care or carelessness that he treats his own. That's dangerous, because if he's not whole and you hand him the key to your self-worth, he'll project his brokenness onto you. And you'll start questioning things that were never in question before he showed up. So you have to guard that part of you, not hide it, but guard it. A man should earn access to your soul, not because you're difficult or hard to love, but because you're aware that not everyone is equipped to handle that kind of access. That's not pride. That's wisdom. That's maturity. Let me ask you something. What would change if you didn't need him to tell you you're enough? What would shift in your life if you didn't wait for his validation to feel confident? What kind of decisions would you make? How many things would you stop tolerating? That's where real power lives. You don't have to broadcast your worth. You don't have to explain it. You live it in how you walk, how you talk, how you say no, how you say yes, in the way you carry yourself, even when you're not being watched. That's what tells the world what you believe about yourself. And when a man sees that, really sees that, it either wakes him up or makes him walk away. And either way, that's a win for you. Because the only man who belongs in your life is the one who sees your worth and mirrors it, not one who needs to be convinced. Never hand over the pen that writes your value. Let him earn the right to read it. There's this idea that when you love someone, you're supposed to give them everything, every feeling, every thought, every breakdown, every bruise, every corner of your heart. And while openness is important, while vulnerability builds intimacy, let me be clear, a woman should never surrender full control of her emotional core to a man. Ever. Because your emotions are yours. They are not his to manage, control, or fix. And the moment you start out sourcing your peace to someone else, you start giving away the most powerful part of you. Too many women are told, either directly or indirectly, that being in a relationship means laying all your emotions at a man's feet, hoping he'll handle them right, hoping he'll understand every mood, hold space for every hurt, and somehow never misuse the weight you've placed in his hands. But let me ask you, what happens when he can't? What happens when he doesn't know what to do with your storm? What happens when he makes your feelings about him? You start doubting yourself. You start shrinking. You start apologizing for how you feel instead of standing in it with strength and self-awareness. A woman should absolutely express her feelings. She should absolutely expect to be heard. But her emotional well-being should never depend on how well he reacts. That's not healthy. That's dangerous. Because the minute he becomes the thermostat for your inner world, you're no longer living in your truth. You're living in his response. Sometimes he won't understand. Sometimes he'll pull back when you need him to lean in. And if you've built your whole emotional stability on his ability to be there every single time, you're going to crash hard. That doesn't mean you isolate. It doesn't mean you bottle things up. What it means is you create an internal system, one rooted in emotional maturity, that allows you to check in with yourself before checking in with him. You know how to process, how to pause, how to name what you feel without needing someone else to validate it for it to feel real. Let me say that again. You do not need someone else to validate your feelings in order for them to be real. You are allowed to have emotions that are misunderstood. You are allowed to feel something deeply and not have to explain it into pieces to get permission to keep feeling it. And you are absolutely allowed to keep some of those emotions close to your chest, not as a way to hide, but as a way to protect the parts of you that are still healing. When a man sees that you've got emotional depth, and emotional discipline, that's powerful. When he sees that you can stand in your own feelings without needing him to rescue you or rewrite the narrative, that's respect. That doesn't make you cold. That doesn't make you distant. That makes you grounded. You teach people how to treat your emotions by how you treat them first. If you ignore them, he'll ignore them. If you weaponize them, he'll defend himself instead of showing up for you. But if you hold your emotions with honesty, clarity, and grace, he'll either rise to meet you there or he'll remove himself. And again, either way, that's a win. We don't talk about this enough. We romanticize emotional transparency like it's always the goal. But transparency without discernment, that's exposure. That's giving too much too fast and hoping someone else has the emotional capacity you haven't even confirmed. That's not love. That's gambling. So yes, open up. Share your heart, invite him in, but don't hand him the blueprint and the power switch and hope he doesn't flip the wrong circuit. Keep that rooted inside you. That's your emotional center, your anchor, your balance, and nobody gets to own that but you. Because the strongest love isn't built on dependency. It's built on interdependence, where you bring your whole emotional self to the table, and so does he. Where you both have a voice, where you both take responsibility for your peace. And if he can't hold space for your feelings without making it about his comfort, that tells you something. That's not a failure. That's information. You are not too much. You just might be too emotionally rich for someone emotionally poor. There's something sacred about a woman's dreams. I'm not talking about fantasies or wishful thinking. I'm talking about those quiet visions she carries in her chest, the goals, the ambitions, the passions that give her life meaning beyond her roles, beyond what she does for others. And no matter how deep a relationship gets, no matter how much love is on the table, a woman must never feel she has to give those up just to keep a man. What she wants for her life, for her growth, for her purpose, that is not optional. That doesn't disappear because a relationship begins. And yet, how many women have silenced their own voice to keep the peace? How many have pressed pause on their goals because they didn't want to rock the boat or outgrow the man standing next to them? Too many. It usually starts small. She takes on his schedule, his needs, his plans. She supports his business, his hustle, his goals. And at first, it feels like love. It feels like partnership. But over time, she starts adjusting, then bending, and before long, shrinking. She loses touch with that fire that once burned so clearly inside her. The dream that once kept her up at night now feels like a burden she's too afraid to carry alone. Especially if the man she's with doesn't see it, support it, or worse, feels threatened by it. Let's be real here. Not every man is ready for a woman with a vision, because a woman with direction doesn't just follow. She builds, she leads, she disrupts. And if a man is insecure, if he's used to being the sun in every room, her light will make him uncomfortable. But that's not a reason for her to dim it. That's a reason for her to keep it shining, because it's the right kind of discomfort. The kind that separates boys from men. Real men don't shrink when a woman stands tall. They stand next to her, proud. Your dreams don't need to wait for permission. They don't need to fit neatly into someone else's idea of enough. And they certainly don't need to be sacrificed just to make sure someone else feels secure. A relationship is supposed to be a place where both people grow, not where one blooms and the other wilts quietly in the background. And sometimes it's not even that he says no to her dream. It's that he never asks about it. He never sees it, never encourages it. And she starts internalizing that silence as a verdict. Starts telling herself, maybe it wasn't realistic. Maybe it's selfish. Maybe it's too late. It's not that dream inside you, that idea, that business, that career move, that creative pursuit. It matters. Even if you're building a family, even if you're in love, even if it makes things more complicated. Because fulfillment doesn't come from love alone. It comes from purpose, from waking up and knowing you're not just existing, you're becoming, and no one else gets to define that for you. Now, can your dream and your relationship grow together? Absolutely. But only if both people are secure enough to support each other's rise, only if there's mutual respect, and only if your dream doesn't have to shrink in order for his comfort to grow. Because at the end of the day, you will regret what you buried more than what you risked. You will resent the quiet, slow death of your calling more than the challenges that come with honoring it. And the truth is, if the man in your life really loves you, he won't want you to play small. He'll want to see you do the thing. He'll want to watch you win. He'll help you stay accountable to that dream, even when you feel tired, even when doubt creeps in. Not because it's his dream, but because it's yours. And he respects what matters to you. But whether he does or not, you can't let it go. You cannot afford to forget the life you were meant to live just because the love you found didn't know how to hold it. So hold it yourself, build it brick by brick. Protect it like it's part of your name, because it is. If he's meant to walk beside you, he'll catch up. If he's not, then your path is still worth walking. There are parts of a woman that aren't meant to be fully explained. Strengths that run so deep they don't need to be announced, and wounds so personal they don't need to be reopened just to prove honesty. Not everything inside her is for someone else to fully understand. And that's not secrecy, that's self-respect. See, we live in a world that constantly tells women they owe people access. That in order to be a good partner, a loving wife, a real woman, she has to put everything on the table. Every childhood scar, every insecurity, every moment of doubt, every past mistake. But here's the truth. A woman can be emotionally available without being emotionally exposed. She can be real without being raw all the time. She can be open without making her entire soul a public diary. There's power in privacy. There's strength in holding space for yourself. And not because you're hiding, not because you don't trust, but because you're honoring parts of yourself that have already survived enough. Some stories don't need to be retold just for someone else's comfort. Some growth doesn't require an audience to be valid, and the same goes for her strengths. Not every gift she carries needs to be on display. Some of her power shows up in how she holds her tongue, how she chooses peace when conflict is easy, how she leads without needing a title. And sometimes it's the things she doesn't say, the battles she fights in silence, that speak the loudest. But when a woman starts believing that every part of her must be shared in order to be loved, she begins to over-explain. She starts handing out emotional access like it's proof of commitment. And the danger in that is this: not everyone has the maturity to hold what you hand them. Not every man is equipped to know everything about you and still treat you with the same care. And that's not your fault. That's life. So instead of waiting to see if someone mishandles your story, protect the parts of it that are still healing. Let trust build gradually. Let people show you their capacity before you offer them your depth. Because once someone knows your weak points, your pain points, your hidden places, they either become a partner in your healing or a weapon in your undoing. And unfortunately, not everyone chooses the right side. That's why discernment matters. That's why boundaries matter. It's okay to keep a few things just for you. It's okay to be selective. You don't need to share every struggle to be authentic. You don't need to explain every trauma to be real. You are not more lovable because you're more exposed. You are not more valuable because you bleed on command. A man who truly sees you won't rush your process. He won't demand your whole story on the first page. He'll be patient. He'll respect what you choose to share, and he'll never make you feel guilty for what you choose to hold back. That's what healthy love looks like. That's what emotional safety feels like. But even in that kind of love, there will still be parts of you that remain yours, and that's how it should be. You were not created to be fully known by another person. There will always be parts of your soul that only you understand, pieces of your journey that only make sense to you. And that mystery, that quiet, sacred space is not a flaw. It's a feature. It's what keeps you whole. You get to decide what's sacred. You get to protect the wisdom you've earned and the places you've healed. You get to decide who gets close and who only watches from a distance. Not because you're distant, but because you're wise. Not because you're guarded, but because you're grown. So no, don't give it all away. Not your softest places, not your deepest strength. Hold something for yourself. Let the man in your life earn access, not just assume it. Because the parts of you that you've worked hardest to build are the ones worth protecting the most. Some things are meant to be shared, but some things are meant to be kept not out of fear, but out of reverence. Money isn't just currency, it's clarity. It tells the truth about how power flows, how respect shows up, and where independence stands. And I'm going to say something that might make some people uncomfortable, but it needs to be said plainly. A woman should always have financial space that belongs to her and her alone. Always. Not because she's planning to walk away, but because she deserves the freedom to stand on her own, even when she chooses to stand beside someone else. Too often, women are taught to blend their financial identity with a man's the moment love shows up. There's pressure to merge everything, to hand over control in the name of unity. But love without autonomy isn't unity, it's dependence. And dependence can turn dangerous, not just physically or emotionally, but mentally. Because once you've lost control of your own finances, it's a short step to losing control of your own choices. You can't speak freely if you're afraid of who controls the bank account. You can't walk away from disrespect if leaving means you won't be able to survive on your own. You can't say no to what doesn't feel right if you've tied your basic needs to someone else's approval. And the sad truth is a lot of women stay in situations they've outgrown, not out of love, but out of fear of starting over, fear of not making enough, fear of being seen as ungrateful. But when you have your own savings, your own income, your own backup plan, that fear loses its grip. Now, I'm not saying you can't build a life together. I'm not saying don't share, don't plan, don't invest together. But I am saying make sure your name is on something that is yours, something you don't have to ask permission to access, something that reminds you, even if this ends, I will be okay. That kind of security is not selfish, it's smart. And look, having financial independence doesn't mean you love less. It means you're loving wisely. It means your presence is a choice, not a transaction. It means you bring value into the relationship, not because you need someone to provide for you, but because you already provide for yourself. And when two people who are whole come together, who both bring strength, stability, and security, what they build is far stronger than any dynamic where one person holds all the power. It's not just about survival. It's about dignity. It's about the ability to say, I'm here because I want to be, not because I have nowhere else to go. That's real love. That's mature love. That's free love. And let's talk about how early this starts. Girls are often taught to dream about love, weddings, motherhood, but rarely are they taught to dream about wealth, about ownership, about legacy. And that mindset bleeds into adulthood, into relationships, into marriages. A woman with her own financial goals, her own business, her own investments, she's often labeled as too independent, too much, or even threatening. But that mindset is rooted in control, not connection. The truth is, if a man is secure, your independence won't scare him. He won't feel less than because you've built something for yourself. He won't feel emasculated by your ambition. In fact, he'll admire it. He'll support it. He'll add to it because he knows that your strength doesn't take anything from him. It multiplies what you can build together. But again, Even if he doesn't show up like that, even if he can't handle it, your responsibility isn't to shrink. It's to protect the part of you that's worked too hard to earn what you have. You don't owe anyone full access to your finances just because they're in love with you. Trust is earned, and access should follow character, not charm. So yes, have the joint account, build the family budget, share the goals, but don't give away your lifeline. Keep something that is yours, not because you're keeping secrets, but because you're keeping wisdom. And when you do that, when you walk into love from a place of wholeness, not from a place of need, you give yourself the greatest gift, the freedom to stay, not because you have to, but because you choose to. Let me leave you with this. This isn't about playing games. This isn't about walls. This is about wisdom. A woman who knows what to hold back isn't being deceptive. She's being deliberate. She understands that love thrives best where boundaries exist, not where selfhood disappears. She knows that protecting her worth, her emotions, her dreams, her private strengths, and her financial peace doesn't make her guarded. It makes her grounded. Because when a woman gives everything, she risks losing herself. But when she gives wisely, she keeps her identity intact while still allowing intimacy to grow. That's not withholding love. That's building love on something real. So if you're a woman listening to this, hear me when I say you don't have to give all of you to be loved well. The right man won't need access to every corner to know your value. He'll feel it and he'll honor it. And if you're a man listening, remember she's not hiding things from you to keep you out. She's protecting the parts of herself that took the longest to build. If you're wise, you'll protect them too. Some things are meant to be shared, but some things are meant to be sacred. And a woman who knows the difference is never afraid to love. She's just smart enough to love herself first.